It is truly wonderful for us to be together on this Shabbat. And as we are here together on this Shabbat, we are in the month of Elul. We're in this last month of the year 5780. We are doing acts of cheshbon nefesh, of really accounting for our soul. And this year is not an easy year to be trying to do this with so much going on in our world. There is just so much, regardless when you turn on the news or when you're talking to folks, you can feel the weight of the world around us. As I say that, as I reflect on the weight that I know I certainly feel in our world, in this week's Torah portion, there is a beautiful phrase. So in the Torah portion, the people of Israel, it's in Kitavo, in Deuteronomy, the people of Israel are about to cross over the Jordan into the land. And they're told, when you harvest the first fruits of the land, you're going to go up to Jerusalem, the place that God is going to show you. And you're going to do this really incredible ritual where you're going to come and tell our story. And the story goes like this. My father was a fugitive Aramean. He went down to Egypt with meager numbers and sojourned there. And there he became a great and very populous nation. The Egyptians dealt harshly with us and oppressed us, and they imposed heavy labor upon us. We cried to the Lord, God of our fathers. The Lord heard our plea, saw our plight, and with our misery and our oppression, and the Lord freed us from Egypt to be a mighty hand by an outstretched arm, awesome power, signs, and portents, of course, bringing us out of the land. And so we're supposed to go, and in the midst, so you've got in your hands holding a basket of first fruits, and then you're saying, God, thank you for these first fruits, and let me remember that moment when my soul was crushed. And so you have this both the stuckness and the release, the celebration, and look, we've made it to the land, but we remember when we were in a bad place. And it's interesting that you get both there because the rabbis add to it. In Passover, you might know there's a whole incredible midrash called Arami Oved Avi. And that's what the beginning of this quote is, Arami Oved Avi. And it becomes this elaborate midrash that is spun through the whole Passover Haggadah. What is phenomenal about it is that the rabbis say, oh, wait, you can translate it two ways. One is Aramed Oved Avi, which is this, my father was a wandering Aramean. The second is Arami Oved Avi, an Aramean oppressed my father. Two different ways of translating it. One is, my father is from Aramea, that's Abraham, he went down and here's his adventure. Or you can say Arami Oved Avi, there was an Aramean, Lavan, who oppressed my father Jacob, and he had to deal with all of that service. Two different ways of translating it, two different analogs. One is from our perspective that we're going out on this incredible adventure, and the other is, look out, the world's going to come and get you and crush you and try to take everything away from you. Both perspectives, both experiences in one phrase. In Judaism, in the Talmud, the rabbis lay this out so beautifully, and they say on one piece of paper, on one side write that the whole world was created for my sake, and on the other side write, I am but dust and ash. They find that paradox that on one day we're going to feel one way, on another we're going to feel another way. Arami Oved Avi, the world was created for my sake. Look at Abraham, just this guy in Haran gets this call, and look where we are sitting, his descendants, all of these thousands of years later. Or maybe, but dust and ash. Here's Jacob, and he has all of this promise, and God has made promises, and he's had all of these adventures, and then he goes trying to find a life for himself, and he's just dealing time and again with his father-in-law, Lavan, just trying to crush him and steal from him and take away all of the blessings he has, feeling very much like dust and ash. And so usually, most times when I'm teaching this, I teach it with a very particular idea and value in Judaism. In Judaism, we often go back and forth between two perspectives. What do the rabbis do? Write one on one side of the paper and one on the other side of the paper. One should be the whole world was for my sake, and the other is I'm but dust and ash. Because as soon as you start reading one side of the paper, you turn it over and you have the other. That we go back and forth between these truths, gaining strength from different places, whether it's from the humility or whether it's from the sake for the blessing. And in fact, I have this image, and there's a term called Ezer Kenegdo. It's how Adam and Eve are spoken and talked about. Eve is Ezer Kenegdo for Adam. That Ezer means help, and Kenegdo means opposition, helpful opposition, that they push back against each other. That Adam is only able to become his full self because of the support, because of the, I'll say it, opposition, but that pushing back and forth that Adam and Eve do as they are trying to find their way and working in relationship with each other. And so usually when I'm talking on the season, I would say letting our Medovi, that idea of going back and forth between those two polarities, moments, sometimes we are going to feel where we need to be humble, just the dust of the earth, and other times we're going to need the world all our sake, and the power of moving from one to the other, let that lift us up. But I thought about it. I thought about that interaction and that going back and forth, and I just realized something important. That sometimes we get so wrapped up in wanting to go from one place to another that we're feeling on top of the world and we want to humble ourselves, or we're feeling really humbled and we want to just get out of it and get moving again. That we get so wrapped up, push ourselves so hard to find the silver lining in the cloud, or to look for that I'm not so special, I'm nothing, the imposter syndrome so often, that we get moving back and forth so quickly that we don't stop and feel. Thought about those two different places. I'm bet dust and ash, a whole world for my sake. Aramed Oved Avi. Sometimes I'm the wandering Aramean who's on a grand adventure and with God's blessing and protection. And sometimes Arame Oved Avi, I'm the guy who's being oppressed by the people I'm trying to work with. I'm trying to get support. Thought about those two different poles, and different people kept coming into my mind. Thought about moments of defeat. And I'm thinking, how do I stop and say to myself, it's okay to feel defeated. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Joseph, when he was in prison, sat in prison. Moses, after he slays the taskmaster, goes into the wilderness, he is lost. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Imagine him feeling alone and frightened and scared. And then I think about Miriam. How must have Miriam felt as she's sitting there and she's just put Moses into his basket, and she's sending him down the river, and she doesn't know what's going to happen to her little brother. Or even, and so striking in this time, in this day and age, the image, the thought that I had of Miriam. Remember that in Leviticus or in Numbers, there's this moment where Aaron and Miriam come forward and they say they're gossiping about Moses. They're doing Lashon Hara. They're saying, oh, he married a Cushite woman. He's not doing the right thing. They go on and spread this just awful gossip about Moses. And God says they shouldn't do that and punishes, and Miriam ends up getting sara'at, a skin disease, and she has to be quarantined for 7 days. I imagine thinking about what Miriam felt. Don't we know that at least a little bit? And what Moses and Aaron were, there they are on the outside of the tent, knowing their sister is miserable, Moses knowing that he's the center of it, and Aaron knowing he was part of it and she's the one that got punished. I think about those moments of our ancestors sitting alone, sitting in pain, lost and feeling defeat. But I also realized there are moments of elation. There's moments of joy. There's moments of celebration. Moses standing at Mount Sinai, getting the 10 Commandments. What would David have felt like after he is victorious over Goliath, or better yet, when he is there dancing and singing and having a grand old time as he brings the Torah into Jerusalem? And also think about Deborah. After there she is, she's offered this prophecy. The people of Israel go out, led by Barak, and they're able to defeat the Philistines. How must Deborah have felt? Here she is, a woman in this time, singing her song, calling the people to the Eternal One, and they succeed. How must they have felt? Proud of their accomplishment, excited for their future, satisfied. Spoke about it a few weeks ago. We're satisfied and we praise. Must they have been dancing on the clouds? We know David quite literally was dancing on the clouds. Both of those moments, both of those experiences, what was the ABC commercial, Wide World of Sports, the awesomeness of victory and the agony of defeat. I know I just butchered the first part. Somebody I'm sure will tell me. I remember it from all of those years ago, the agony, defeat, the guy on the skis having that huge crash. I still remember that language. And so here, in this year, as the year comes to an end, we have our tradition which says moving back and forth between polarities, from everyday to holy and holy to everyday, from clean to unclean, from transcendent to immanence, back and forth. And there is part of us that needs to find that right way. When we're feeling down, how do we push ourselves back up? And when we are so full of ourselves, how do we calm ourselves and center ourselves and ground ourselves, realizing that we are finite and that we are still imperfect, as successful as we are. But we also have to stop. We can't be in constant motion expecting to push off and back. This is also time to be in those moments and feel the positive or claim the humility. Because if we don't stop, whichever side we might be in, and feel, we're going to miss the emotions and the experience of those emotions that are so vital and important. If we're in constant motion and we don't really stop and look and see where we are and feel either end of that, we're not going to be able to really ask ourselves, how did we get here? Am I doing this the right way? Am I just repeating the pattern? How do we need to stop so we can take stock? And then there's that last piece that we have to appreciate. Sometimes we have to appreciate that we are in fact broken, or that we are in fact stuck, because we're never going to solve the problem if we're broken and stuck and we just try to keep going and going and going. If your tire is flat, you have to fix the tire before you move. And in the same breath that I say, it's okay to feel brokenness and stuck, the flip side of that is it's okay to appreciate, wait a second, I'm good at something. Wait a second, I did have a problem that I could solve. Wait a second, I have brought something of beauty and light and sweetness and joy into the world. Arami Oved Avi. Sometimes we are going to be that wandering Aramean on a grand adventure. Sometimes we are going to be that person that is oppressed by an Aramean. We are going to have those experiences. And it is absolutely true that we have to learn how to move back and forth. But also, in this day and age, in this time, as we come to the end of this year, let us be patient and let us be brave. Let us take some time to feel, to be in the place where we are, to appreciate it, to feel it, to understand it. Because it's only as knowing those places on either end that we will be able to be fully ourselves, to be able to grow, to find the blessings, to bring healing and tikkun to our world. let each of us, wherever we sit, however we move, let us search for shalom, for wholeness, harmony, and peace in our hearts, in our lives, and in our world. Amen. Shabbat shalom.